Welcome to another story made by Oracle One, the Café of Hearts. In the heart of a sleepy town nestled between winding cobblestone streets and ivy-draped buildings stood the Velvet Jar, an antique café glowing with the warm amber light of countless evenings shared over fragrant coffee cups and whispered secrets. Owned by Eleanor, a woman whose silver-streaked hair and gentle smile seemed to hold stories of the past, the café was more than a place to sip espresso or nibble tartlets. It was a sanctuary, a keeper of memories, and a stage upon which threads of human connection wove themselves together. Eleanor had inherited the café from her grandfather, a charismatic man who had opened the Velvet Jar during the 1920s, a time when jazz music spilled through its open windows like golden liquid, and the front register was a gleaming brass masterpiece carved with intricate patterns, an antique cash register that had sounded each sale with a melodic chime that felt like a promise of warmth and welcome. This register was not only an artifact but a silent witness to decades of human stories. On a thick autumn afternoon, as amber leaves gallantly pirouetted down the streets, a sudden mishap shattered the old routine. The brass register, which had clicked and chimed through countless transactions, let out a mechanical groan and then stopped responding. Eleanor tried every method she knew, tapping, coaxing, gentle shakes, but the register remained stubbornly still, its inner gears forever silent. Customers, a stream of familiar faces and newcomers alike, began to line up, their smiles flickering with curiosity. Eleanor, unwilling to disappoint the steady crowd, thought of an old-fashioned solution she'd once read about in a dusty book on cafés of yore. "If the register won't work, we'll write IOUs," she declared with a determined glint in her eyes. Handwritten promises to pay, ink on paper, more personal than any cash transaction. Scooping up small sheets of aged stationery she kept behind the counter, Eleanor handed out pencils and encouraged each customer to write their own IOU, promising to return and settle the debt soon. The atmosphere shifted, the air thick with an intimate energy. Payment was no longer just an exchange of money but a pact of trust, a soft thread binding patrons to the café and to each other. Days passed. Each handwritten IOU was a snapshot of personalities. A small doodle next to a sum, a playful note inscribed on the back of a little heart, a hurried scrawl accompanied by a promise to return soon. Sometimes, Eleanor gathered the notes and sorted them neatly, admiring the tender humanity they embodied. Then, on a breezy Friday morning, just as the sun was beginning to scatter golden fragments through the café's stained glass windows, a peculiar IOU caught Eleanor's eye. Unlike the others, which bore sums in dollars and cents, this one carried only 2 words, written in delicate, sweeping cursive: a kiss. She blinked, unsure if the note was a jest or an earnest promise. The note was unsigned but left folded carefully atop the counter beside the empty sugar jar. Her heart skipped somewhere between surprise and amusement. A kiss? Could that really be offered as payment for a steaming cup of her famous chai latte? Eleanor's curiosity ignited, and without intending to, she posted a small sign beside the note. "Whoever left this wonderful IOU is welcome to claim their kiss here. Ask for Eleanor." The sign was less of a serious proposal and more a playful invitation, a way to lighten the mood in the café shaken by the register's failure. Yet, as the day wore on, more eyes flicked to the note with a mix of intrigue and delight. Even the regulars, usually private and reserved, shared knowing smiles and whispered speculations. Among the crowd was Oliver, a young writer with a mop of dark hair and eyes like stormy seas. Oliver was new to town and slipped into the Velvet Jar each morning seeking refuge from his thoughts and the hum of his typewriter keys. Today, like every day since the register broke, he scribbled a hastily written IOU, a sum in numbers, but his eyes lingered longer than usual on the a kiss, note. Eleanor watched him from behind the counter, noting the way his smile softened when he glimpsed the note and the subtle flush that crept across his cheeks when their eyes met. For days, each of them circled the unspoken words like moths drawn to a flame neither could resist nor define. Days became weeks, and the register still did not work, forcing the cafe into this strange barter of human promises and debts. The handwritten IOUs created an unintended intimacy. Conversations flowed more freely, laughter was richer, and strangers became acquaintances, then friends, held together by these simple pieces of paper, tangible evidence of trust and connection. One evening, as the fading light draped long shadows across the oak floorboards, Oliver stayed later than usual, lingering as the cafe emptied. Eleanor wiped down the counter, a kiss note still resting there, its ink as fresh as the first time she'd seen it. With a tremulous breath, Oliver stepped forward. "May I try to repay mine with something other than figures?" Eleanor's smile was gentle, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and vulnerability. "I'm not sure kisses can be exact currency, but our debts don't always tally in numbers." His hand brushed hers briefly as he reached for the note, his fingers warm and sure. "May I offer this one in exchange for my debt?" The cafe seemed to hush around them, as if all the stories inscribed into the walls were holding their breath. Taking a step closer, their hands found a quiet embrace, and in that tender moment, the impossible became beautifully real, a kiss shared, a promise sealed beyond handwriting or currency. From that evening onward, the register remained silent, but the economy of hearts flourished. Customers continued to pay with IOUs, some sensitive promises, others heartfelt notes, and a few, like a kiss, that brought laughter and blushes. Eleanor and Oliver grew inseparable, their lives entwined within the delicate balance of trust and affection fostered by the velvet jar. The cafe thrived not because of transactions but because it had become a sanctuary for sincerity, vulnerability, and love. One crisp morning, as autumn's chill brushed the streets and golden leaves drifted past the window panes, Eleanor dusted off the ancient brass register. To her surprise, as light spilled over its surface, the register chimed softly, the gears turning once more. Yet, Eleanor could not bring herself to replace the handwritten IOUs. Instead, she placed the register back in its corner, a magnificent relic among others, and set a glass jar beside it labeled, "Debts of the Heart." Customers dropped notes into it freely, promises to return, gentle thanks, and at times, small hand-drawn hearts with the words, "Paid in full." The velvet jar became a legendary place, a cafe where no amount of money could purchase the warmth of a shared moment, where the currency was kindness, and each IOU was a chapter in a story of hearts intertwining. Some came seeking coffee and pastries, but left having traded more, smiles, touches, whispers, and sometimes, a kiss. Proof that in a world relentlessly chasing coins and bills, the most priceless debts are those of the heart. For more stories, like and subscribe.